Well. We're back. Again, I'm having such a blast this year. I always love doing these shows, but this year has been extra fun for me. We're in a new house. You'll notice a new space in the background, or you won't. Or I'm just being a narcissist and you're like, what? New space? What's going on? But today's episode is, and I probably say this every time, and I say that every time, but this is one of the most important episodes. No pressure, Nicole. I know you're in the wings listening. But this is one of see, my voice is trying to stop me from even saying this. This is one of the most important episodes that any human on the planet will listen to, but specifically anybody artist wise or music wise or writing wise that's trying to, or speaking wise, that's trying to start their own business. This is the stuff that makes it icky, makes us bail, makes us procrastinate. This is the stuff. So listen here for all the see, this is why I'm talking about this. My voice is so scared of talking about this that it's trying to stop. So this is gonna be interesting. Without further ado, I'm gonna read Nicole's bio. We're gonna bring her on. We're gonna talk about why my voice wants to stop. And that's probably my own issue that I can relate to you all. But we're just gonna talk and see about trauma. And that's a big word. It's a buzzword right now. But let's unpack it. It's not as big as you might think. There's a lot of things to it, but it's actually quite simple to understand. And once we understand how it's working, and pardon me, that it's working, we can understand how it's working and what to do about it. All right. So the funnest thing that I saw on Nicole's website was going from oh shit to I got this, and I think that is epic. So that's our theme for today. So here's a bit about Nicole. Nicole Lewis Keeber is the business therapist, author of How to Love Your Business, and creator of the Do No Harm program for trauma conscious entrepreneurs. She's passionate about the impact of small T trauma. We'll talk about that later on businesses and combines therapeutic processes with business coaching to help entrepreneurs build emotionally sustainable, financially stable businesses. Nicole has a rich and varied experience as a therapist. She's trained and certified with Brené Brown's Dare to Lead methodology and has also been featured on numerous media outlets, including Fast Company and NPR, for her work in breaking the stigma of mental health and business ownership. This is so good. I'm just ready. Nicole, come on in. Come on in, girl.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. So I'm so excited to talk to you. And apparently, I'm so friggin' scared to talk to you, which is why my voice is trying to cut out. And this is the thing we're going to connect later down the
Mm,
road. But welcome, welcome, welcome. This is
Thank
so
you.
good. Uh, I always start with people, business therapists, that's so niche. And I
Yeah.
want to kick off today with your story. It's powerful, but it's also really crucial as to how you became so niche in your therapy work that it's business and mental awareness and emotional awareness and all this good stuff. So share a bit about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
Well, my
And
pleasure.
we'll definitely talk about your voice and why it's trying to shut you down.
Isn't that fun? I
Oh,
would
like,
be
of
embarrassed, but I'm
course.
like, I know what it is, so it's fine. It's
Yeah.
cool.
I'm glad that you have that awareness. Yeah. So thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure.
So my story is I was a therapist for 18 years. I have a master's degree in social work. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And most of my work in the field was in direct practice, working with people with behavioral health, substance abuse, the military, like you name it. I've been in the seat across from them. And after about 18 years, being in that field, I was very burnt out myself because it as an industry isn't, they don't really, it's not very supportive and it doesn't really teach you how to
Mhm,
take care of yourself, right?
mhm,
And so I left the field of direct practice and doing therapy about 18 years in because I really still wanted to work with people, but I wasn't sure how without I was just so crispy at that point. I had to find another way. And I decided to work with a coach myself, a life coach, which was a real stretch for me as a therapist because at the time I was really
mhm.
sure about the whole coaching thing. Sometimes I'm still not, but at the time,
Love
I
your
took a
honesty.
leap. That's what you'll get. I took a leap and I started doing some coaching, and I really just saw the benefit of working with people on a goal and from a more resourced place, and not
Mhm.
necessarily in a pathologizing type of way. And I really loved it. And so I thought, well, this might be something. Oh, I'm so Southern. I just said my could. I'm sorry.
You're so cute. I love it. Be more Southern. I don't even care. Throw it in there.
Oh my God. All right. Oh my gosh, my kin. So I just decided I wanted to do something with this. And I started doing money mindset coaching with small business owners and working around the concept of money trauma, because money
Yes.
trauma is a thing. And it
So
goes
good.
much further than money mindset. You know, you'll hear a lot of mindset work, particularly in the personal development field, in the coaching industry, in
Mhm.
the entertainment industry. It's all about mindset. But
Mhm.
mindset tricks and tips don't work always if you have a traumatized nervous system, or if
Ooh,
there's
that's good.
some. Exactly. And so that's what
Uh-huh.
I was seeing is, these people who were coming to me, I think they kind of came to work with me because they also knew I had been a therapist. And I think there was some desire to work with a therapist, but in a new and different way. And I just was doing a lot of work around, helping people unpack what money trauma meant to them, and
Mhm.
that the mindset shifts and tricks that they have been taught were not working for them for a reason, and it wasn't their fault. That was a big thing. It's not your
Oh, that's
fault.
huge. That's
You know,
huge 'cause
your
we can
nervous
think we
system
don't know
can't
what we're
support it.
doing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And about 2 years into my own business, I started having like the Sunday Scaries where I didn't want to get up and go to work the next morning.
Mhm.
And I was feeling like it didn't matter what I did, it wasn't enough, or that my clients weren't happy, it wasn't making enough money, like all the stuff. And there was no evidence to support any of that. None. Right. Making more money than I had as a therapist within the
Yep.
first 2 years. There was no evidence to support that.
Right.
However,
Right.
that was not translating. And so I got up one morning very, very early, and I was reading the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert.
Mm.
And she was telling the story of Dr. Walkimmer, who is she's a professor of natural sciences, I think.
Mhm.
She also wrote the book Braiding Sweetgrass. Like, it's such a beautiful book.
Mm.
And
Have to
she was
check that out.
talking, it's a good book. She was talking to her incoming freshman class, and she said, just paraphrase, how many of you love nature? Raise your hand. They all raised their hand. And she said, how many of you believe that nature loves you in return? No
Oh.
hands. And she said, okay, so we've got a problem.
Wow.
You're right. You're about to spend all this time studying something that you don't feel like you're in a relationship with. And I had the biggest aha moment.
Oh.
Remember, we talk about aha, oh shit, but I had the
Yeah.
aha moment. And I thought, I I love my business. I love what I do, but I do not feel loved by it. I do not feel supported by it. In
Mhm.
fact, I feel like this business doesn't want what's best for me, or
Wow.
is a demanding teacher or a parent. And so I
Uh-huh.
started to unpack this, hit physician, heal thyself. I started with
Mm.
myself, recognizing this, that I needed to figure out if I had a miserable business and I felt abused by my business, why would that be? Because I was a business of one. And so I started to unpack that for myself, and I recognized, okay, so I feel this way because I created this relationship with my business to reflect and repattern trauma from my past in
Mhm.
relationship with my mom. I had a very hard relationship with my mother.
Mhm.
And you talk about one of those moments, a complete and total paradigm shift. Everything changed for me in that moment. And it
Mm.
has informed everything I have done since then. I've literally talked to Elizabeth Gilbert and thanked her for writing that book. I said, do you realize that my entire world changed
Oh, from
from
that
reading
one
that from
story.
that one book? And she was
Mm.
not surprised because it's called Big Magic for a reason, um, because it is a magical book. But it changed everything. And so I got very curious about how trauma impacts business. Like, how does it impact the
Mm.
function, the choices that we make, how we show up, our attachment to it, the behaviors and how we treat ourselves, all that all
Oh,
got birthed that morning. And
good.
so I have been doing research ever since then on the
Wow.
intersection between trauma and entrepreneurship. And it has just grown since then. So
Oh
that is
my
my
gosh.
story.
Well, you were doing some important work in this world because the minute I heard this, I'd never heard it before. I'm sure if I thought about it, I could have connected the dots, but I hadn't. And so you connected it for me and said, "Right, you're in a relationship with this business, and does it love you back?"
Mhm.
And I went, I don't think I've ever asked that question before, but I
Yeah.
certainly feel like the answer is no.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So, where I want to go next is to unpack the word trauma. A lot of
Mhm.
people go, I don't have trauma. I didn't have a big event happen to me as a kid that was, super negative. I had great parents. We had a great life. Can you talk a little bit about big T and small T trauma and how that maybe is affecting everybody, regardless if they're aware of it or not?
Yeah, sure can. And, if you're watching us along the way, if you feel like you start to feel a little anxious about this, or,
Yeah.
maybe you're feeling uncomfortable in your body, or you're recognizing maybe for the first time that something actually was traumatic that you didn't quite
Mhm.
know, just
Mhm.
feel free to take care of yourself. You can come back to this.
Yeah, you can
Just
watch it
take,
forever. Yep,
yep. So take
it's
care of
on
you,
YouTube. Yeah,
because we're going to be
thank you
talking
for
about
that.
childhood trauma. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I were to take my microphone and go out to the street and ask people what trauma is to them, like what the definition of it is, the majority of them would tell you it is what we call a big T trauma, or at least I call it that. Some people use those terms, some people don't. But I call it big
Mhm.
T trauma. They would say domestic violence. They would say abuse. They'd say PTSD from combat, maybe like a natural disaster,
Mhm.
those type of things. And that's true. That's big T. It happens pretty dramatically.
Mhm.
Um, it changes everything, and that is trauma. However, that is not all that trauma is, and we are very uneducated and unaware about the different types of trauma. So I spend a lot of time educating about the fact that there is something also called little T trauma, or small T
Mhm.
trauma. And it's a little bit harder to define, but the way I look at it is that it is cumulative experiences that you have in those developmental years in particular, where maybe you felt unsafe, unseen, maybe even emotionally neglected in some way, or you had an experience that made you feel like you were out of control, like control was taken away from you in some way.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it changed something for you. It changed how you value yourself, what you felt was
Mhm.
available to you as you grew up. And these small experiences are cumulative in nature, and they change everything for you.
Yeah.
So it could be something like, maybe you had a parent who was chronically ill, so you became an adult, or your parentified kid, like early.
Yeah. Yeah.
We probably wouldn't look at that and say, hey, that was trauma for that kid, but it absolutely was, because it changed how they valued themselves, what they saw was available to them in their
Mhm.
future, and
Mhm.
they adapted to deal with this thing, right? Trauma adaptation.
Mhm.
And so these cumulative experiences are profound to our development and how we see ourselves, and informs the thoughts, feelings, and decisions that we make as we
Mhm.
grow up and as adults.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, a lot of people don't recognize that. They might just say, well, I just had a hard childhood, or me and my parents just didn't get along, or,
Yeah.
school was just hard for me. School was hard for me too. I had a learning disability. I'm 52 now. I just turned
Oh, you're so
52.
cute.
I just turned
Happy
52.
birthday.
Thank you. No one was talking about any of
No.
that when I was at school. So I went to school every day with a system that did not know how to teach me. So do you think that that's not going to change how I see myself and value myself in the world?
Right.
Of
100%.
course.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course it did. So I always say that big T trauma explodes, little T trauma erodes, but they are both strong enough to move
Oh.
a mountain. And so we have to pay attention to
Oh, you're just full of word nuggets. I love it. I love it so much. They're so good. The
them.
erodes. Yes.
Mhm.
You know what? That's where you said something there about, where you lost control, and I could feel my voice start to lock up again. So it really is, if you have control habits in your business and you can't trust other people to help you, or you won't ask for help, that's a real good signal that some kind of trauma is possibly running your business. Can you share with us some more signals that people might be able to recognize and go, okay, I maybe don't think I have a trauma in my past, but my behavior doesn't quite link up with
Mhm.
no trauma? What are we looking for here? I know there's
Right.
lots. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot, and I think that I was there's one thing that I think comes up a lot, and that many people that I know and that I've worked with and talked to over the years, who
Mhm.
are entrepreneurs, or maybe even they're artists or leaders, small business owners, they can almost tell me to the age where some experience happened for them where they decided a couple of things. I'll show you, I'm not going to be like you, or
Ah,
I'll prove to you that I'm not who you say I am, or I can't trust anybody, so I have to take care of myself.
mm,
There's some moment where this change in consciousness was to where you can almost pinpoint their desire to be entrepreneurial, to
mhm,
own a small business, to always be the boss, to be the one with the power, to be the one in control. We can peel back the layers and find an experience in their formative years where that started,
wow,
right? Where that
yeah,
started. And so what happens is that desire to feel in control or to prove something to someone like their father or mom, that comes with them into their business. And so what we talk about is, I just, doesn't matter what money I make in my business, I always feel like it's not enough,
mhm,
right? Or
mhm,
my employees just don't listen to me and they just won't do what I need them to do.
mhm,
And, or let me think of another one. I can't think of another one right now, but it's a
yeah,
behavior within the interpersonal dynamics a lot within the
mhm,
business that is annoying to them, and they know it's causing them issues, but they don't
yeah,
really realize that, hey, my dad was a domineering parent and I'm behaving like my dad to my
right,
employees, right? So
right,
there's usually some connection there with a behavior or pattern that they have recognized that's impacting their
right,
money, their relationships
yeah.
within their business structure, and they aren't quite sure where it came from or how it's still there.
Yeah. A big one that I hear a lot of people say is the martyr, like the exhausted, near burnout
Hmm.
martyr, where they're wondering if they should just quit it all.
Yeah.
What can you say to that? Because I see a lot of musicians have that where it's not working. Maybe I should just go pick a real job, right? But they've got this martyr, me against the world.
Hmm.
Nobody, I'm not considered. All those things. That's probably more of what we've just talked about. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that it's so much more complicated than people think, in that
Hmm.
if you don't have a nervous system that has room for you to see yourself
Mm,
as successful, for you to see that you matter and that you are no longer having to prove your value or worth through your
hmm.
music. If you don't have a nervous system that has capacity to back that up, it doesn't matter what the success you have, you are always going to feel like you are trying to prove that thing. And you're
Wow.
going to continually move the goalpost for yourself because you don't have the tools or the capacity to
Yeah.
let that integrate and absorb in.
Oh, this is so big. This is so big because I hear a lot of people too. They say, I'm doing the work, I'm doing the affirmations, I'm going to therapy, but nothing's changing. And and maybe they're not even going to therapy, but they're doing all the mindset stuff,
Mhm,
but it's not changing. And you've just said if you don't have a nervous system that can take it on. So how do we know if our nervous system can't take it on? What are some signals that it will show us? And how, I know, big question and generalized question, but how can we
mhm,
put it back into neutral so we can start absorbing these really cool mindset shifts that we want to be absorbing?
mhm. I think that if we've set a goal for ourselves, that when we reach it, we don't feel satisfied. We're not getting the
Mhm,
relief that we were looking for. A lot of the people I work with who are entrepreneurs, like they'll own several different businesses, they made all this money. They're looking for the relief of being valued,
mhm,
being feeling like they've accomplished something, or getting the respect from someone in their past that maybe is not even still alive anymore,
mhm.
because they don't know what they're trying to achieve through their business. Their business has a job that they don't even realize.
Right.
They can't give it to themselves. So because they don't know, they can't give
Wow.
themselves the relief. They can't give themselves the satisfaction, the accolades. So they just keep moving it. And
Mhm,
so our nervous system, if you see that within yourself, that it doesn't matter what I do, I feel like it's not enough.
mhm,
That could be an indicator of it. I forget what the
mhm.
question was. Um,
That's okay. The nervous system and how you're so awesome. You're right on point. The nervous system and how do we notice that it's not, in a state that can accept the new mindset shifts, and
mhm,
how can we put it back in that state or
yeah,
recorrect that? Yeah.
striving but never arriving.
Ooh,
Right?
that's a good one.
Strive,
Yeah.
strive, strive, never arriving there because you constantly change the
Uh-huh.
goalpost, or you
Mhm.
immediately invalidate the thing that you just did. right? It was
Mhm.
really important until you got it, and then you're like, it didn't matter,
No, no, don't care. Yeah.
right?
Okay.
That is a protective nervous system, right?
Yeah.
It's more dangerous to have the success and allow it in than it is to diminish it and dismiss it. You see this a lot in the entertainment industry where someone will have just had a huge award
Yeah.
and they'll go into a depression, or an award is looming on the horizons, like their biggest accomplishment in their career. And I'm not going to name names in the past 6 months.
Yeah.
And they don't make it to that award because
Yeah.
they don't have the capacity for the success because their nervous system is still operating in an old way.
Right.
So we have to recognize it. We have to get support around that. And we also have to recognize that that traumatized nervous system that we have is usually connected to much younger versions of ourselves. I call them your
Yes.
inner kiddos. And so if you're trying
Mm.
to, get on stage and play in front of thousands of people, and your 6 year old or 7 year old or 10 year old doesn't feel like you deserve it because they had someone telling them they were worthless, that 10 year old is going to keep you from going on that stage or achieving this thing because that
Mhm.
inner 10 year old doesn't have the capacity for this. So we have to get in
Right.
touch with that wounded version of ourselves to bring them
Right.
along or dismiss them. So there's a
Yeah.
lot here, and it makes sense to me why people struggle here because there's some things to
Yeah.
unpack.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying too, and I get from it that the system is not trying to thwart you because it hates you. The
No, it's
system
trying
is
to
trying to be
protect
like,
you.
protection, yes, and I wanna really
Yes.
make that clear to folks. We have a chat here, Wanda is just loving it. She says, "Yes," with 3 exclamation points.
Oh,
Atta girl, alright. That's awesome.
yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of things that the Sunday Scaries is a big one for people. Even if things are going right in their life,
Mhm,
they can just dread Monday for
mhm,
whatever reason, and that's a big sign. And so, let's take an example like that, Nicole, and just say like, what is the I don't even know what to ask here. Not the solution, but what is the remedy for the Sunday scaries? What do we need
mhm.
to start looking at? What are the right questions to ask? Not the what's wrong with me? Why am I having anxiety on Sunday?
Yeah.
Right? That's the wrong and not to make anybody wrong, but if we had to use word
Mhm.
right and wrong, that's the wrong question to be asking, right?
Yeah.
What is the right question to be asking?
Yeah, the right question to be asking is, what do I need to know here?
Oh,
Just like I asked myself that morning when I was feeling like crap and read
yeah,
Big Magic, it's like,
yeah,
what do I need to know here? I'm not
yeah.
going to beat myself up for this thing. At least I
Mhm,
didn't after about a day or two.
mhm.
Initially, I was like, well done. You've managed to create abuse in your business. Who does that? No one ever has ever done that before. And that's not true. But is to ask yourself, like, what do I need to know here? If I'm feeling anxious about Monday, is
Yeah,
this even true? Like Dr. Brene Brown says, do I have
yeah.
the data to freak out? Right?
Oh, I love that.
I didn't have the data to freak out. There was no data that supported my need to feel like crap.
Mhm,
So it's just taking a moment and say, okay, so what is it that I need here? Because typically when we're having that anxiety or we're feeling that dread, again, it's because our nervous system has gotten activated.
mhm,
And because our nervous system is connected to an experience where we had before, where the
mhm.
looming next day felt
Yes.
difficult, and it could be a younger version of you that needs some support. So
Mhm.
when we unpack it and ask ourselves, what is it that I really need here? Often, what you will hear is a younger version of you, if you start to get in touch with that part of you, say, I'm just afraid that this person on our schedule tomorrow at 11 o'clock, I don't know them. I'm afraid that they're going to think we're dumb, or they're going to hate my track, or whatever that may be. So
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
there's usually something very specific connected to it that feels like a threat.
Yes.
And in that moment, you can say, "Oh God, I get you. I get it." Talking back to that anxiety and saying, "I get it. That
Yeah.
is scary." Or we don't know that person,
Yeah.
and we're going to be okay because there's more evidence that we are okay than not. We have to
Mm.
reinforce the inner narrative because that inner critic really is there, in my opinion, just to protect those younger versions of ourselves. It is not
Mhm.
to drive you crazy. It is
No.
not to be an asshole. It is
Mhm.
there to in its whole purpose is to protect you and to protect those younger versions of you from feeling unsafe, unseen, unwanted, or any of those
Mm.
experiences that you've had already.
Mm.
So when you're feeling that activation, we all know what that feels like.
Mhm.
Our voice starts to crack, or we get
Yeah.
on the stage, been there, and just completely blacked out.
Yeah. Yeah.
We see a meeting on our calendar that we're a little nervous about.
Yeah.
Whatever that may be, it is taking a moment of self compassion and reflection as opposed to beating ourselves up for having the worry or the anxiety,
Ugh,
because that's not
or
useful.
right, or reading 1,000 books to figure out what's wrong with you.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with you. Your nervous system is doing what it's supposed to do. It's literally just trying to protect you from something that feels very dangerous.
Yeah, wow. You said something a while back about recreating the trauma that's familiar from our childhood selves in our businesses, and I really wanna drive that home. How do we recreate the trauma? Do we and is it subconsciously we're attracted to things, or do we just have these sort of make believe narratives that come and we blanket over our business to make it make sense and make it reflect the
Mhm.
trauma? How does that work?
It works a couple of ways. First of
Yeah,
all, no one's looking for childhood trauma in their business, so we just don't
right.
talk about the connection because we have
Yeah.
been so indoctrinated into this idea that we're supposed to abandon ourselves at our office door or when we
Mhm.
start a business, and that's not who we are as human beings. So
Mhm.
systems kind of support and condition us that way.
Mhm.
Um, so you're not looking for it.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
other thing is that I believe, this is just my theory, that when you start a business, you enter into a relationship. It is something outside of you that you are connecting with. It's
Mhm.
something outside of you that you are relating to.
Mhm.
And therefore, we are very prone to bring patterns of relationship patterns, whether it's with a primary caregiver, maybe it's been relationships with peers, maybe, you know, however, attachment styles, that
Yeah.
we can bring those patterns into how we relate to this thing. You
Mhm.
can create a demanding, demeaning boss of your business, or you can, with intention, create a loving and supportive entity, which is what I ended up
Wow.
doing.
Wow.
You can do both, but it
Yeah.
takes understanding and intention to create the loving relationship if that's not been the patterns that you've
Right.
had. And you can
Right.
have done a lot of therapy and have really, really worked on that in your marriage, or maybe with your primary caregiver, your primary caregiver. I can't speak. Primary
It's
caregivers or
okay.
biological parents or whomever.
Yeah.
You could have worked on that relationship and it
Mhm.
still be recreated in your business, because starting a business is a high dive into personal development. It brings up everything. And when we're
Mhm.
in crisis, we revert back to old patterns of behavior.
Mhm.
Um,
Ooh.
so yeah, so that's kind of how I look at it. Trying to think of
Wow.
some other ways in which it comes up. We work out those dynamics with employees or contractors or even clients
Yeah.
that need to fight, flight, fawn, or freeze.
Yeah.
That those ways that our nervous system can come up and
Yeah.
react.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people fighting with their clients, or a lot of people fawning over their clients to their own detriment.
Yeah.
So it can come up in a lot of ways.
Wow. So I'm getting from this that if there's something in your business or your life of how you're being that you don't care for, like
Yes.
if you're if you're like, I really don't want to be this person, but you're making me,
Hmm.
that's a clear sign that probably we have some trauma running the show
Yes.
and that we're not being totally mindful. So if I'm understanding what you're saying, it's about a minute to minute practice, moment to
Hmm.
moment practice of pausing and having that self compassion, that inquiry and starting fresh and moving forward in a new from a new foot. Would that
Yes.
be how we do this practice? Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. Because you are
Yeah.
building that capacity.
Mhm.
Your nervous system will shut down the thing that you're trying to go for
Yes.
if you don't have room for it. Or, if you're trying to look for calm and peacefulness in your activities, and your nervous system its baseline is used to chaos. What are we
Yeah.
going to do? We're going to bring chaos in. So
Mhm.
it's incremental. It has helped us like increase, we call that window of tolerance for the thing that you're wanting to do. Because if you
Nice.
go all in too soon, you don't have the room for it. You don't have the capacity for it. So we have to kind of like
Wow.
creak open the door.
And that's how we increase that window of tolerance is just that moment to moment, or is there practices? I've
Hmm.
heard, for example, that things like deep breathing and yoga and even singing to a point can help, retrain that vagal nervous
Yeah.
system and all that good stuff. So what can you say to that?
Yeah. Yeah. I love bagel tone. So singing, humming,
Mhm.
Cold water exposure, either just putting your face in some cold water. Those are some very physical things that you can do to prime your
Mhm.
nervous system, to tone that vagus nerve. Breathing, either square breathing, or if you feel activated by square breathing. When I mean activated, it's like you kind of get some physical reaction to it.
Right.
I think a lot of the myth is that breathing helps people who've had trauma, when in reality, breathing techniques can actually cause someone who's had trauma to have a trigger.
Yeah.
It can be hard on them. So
Yep.
usually the exhale being longer than the inhale helps more with that nervous
Mhm.
system regulation. So
Yeah.
yeah, so any of those, vagus nerve, journaling
Mhm.
can be super helpful. One of the
Mhm.
things that I do with my clients is I have them think of their business as an entity outside themselves and name it or give it a persona. Like my
Mhm.
persona is the Muppet of Christmas Present from,
I
that
love
movie,
that.
The Muppet.
Yeah.
So that, again, it helps us relate because we as human beings, we co-regulate with each other, right? We
Right.
heal in community. We co-regulate. So if you have your nervous system connecting
Mhm.
with your business as an entity outside of yourself, maybe it's a um, angel that you love, or a mountain that you go to and grab strength from, whatever that may be for you.
Mhm.
That is a way that you can also work on that co-regulated piece of, this business loves me, supports me, and wants me to do well,
Mhm.
and it's going to have a problem with me if I do something that is going to harm myself with my business.
Right.
And so that's another way, is to really lean into that idea of your business being something outside of you to help co-regulate you.
Mhm, mhm. This stuff is so fascinating to me because, in my own personal journey, I am a singer, and I came to that later in life. As a child, I was very quiet, and then later I became a singer, which was very loud, so it was, trauma central. Um, and what started happening is I started developing an aversion to singing. So even though that's one of the tools, this is the piece I want to bring forward that's so important. Even though that's one of
Mm-hmm.
the tools back to regulation, that was actually triggering me and not working for me. Just like you said, some of the deep breathing might not work for you. Meditation is supposed to work for everybody. It might not for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that in those moments, it's so important to not bring up the what's wrong with me question,
Yeah,
because that's not the question. The question is, maybe I should try something else. What should I try next? Or what can we do in those moments where we feel
yeah.
like, why aren't the tools working for me? What's wrong with me? What's the solution back?
It's such a very personal thing. So
Yeah.
as you develop this pattern of not immediately shaming yourself and going into a shame spiral and believing all the things that are wrong with you, and
Mhm.
recognizing that, this is just my nervous system doing what it does. It's
Mhm.
it's a primal thing. All it knows
Mhm.
is dead, alive, like danger, no
Right.
danger. And that, this is not a flaw on my end,
Yeah.
and getting more
Yeah.
curious about what works for you. Because I say
Yeah.
every day, what works for you will work for you.
Yeah.
And it's not always what someone else prescribes, which is why I kind of don't have tips or tricks I can kind of give you right now to
That's
say,
awesome.
go do this thing, because it doesn't
Right.
work for everyone. So
Right.
getting to know yourself,
Right.
working with someone who can hold space to help you do that also is
Mhm.
very supportive.
Mhm.
But just recognizing the very first and last thing is, this is a biological function.
Right.
Your
Right.
body is your nervous system is doing what it's supposed to. We
Right.
just want to calm it down a little bit.
Right, and we
That's
don't have
it.
control over this, right? We don't have control over
Mm-mm.
that. It's
Mm-mm.
automatic. We just have to have the consciousness in the moment to bring us back to neutral. Wanda was loving your Christmas present ghost. And she says, "I love that. Mine would be a fat, voluptuous goddess who revels in
Yes.
her sexuality and power." Yes,
Yes.
girl. Oh, I love this
Yes.
stuff. Yeah,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
it's so brilliant. Um, so there's so many places to go here. This is so brilliant. But let's go voice for a second. So both you and I had voice things during the show where you said I can't talk and I was like my voice is shutting off.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on there from a therapist standpoint? What's going on there? And how can we come out the other side not feeling like we're reaffirming those limiting beliefs about
Mm-hmm.
ourselves? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people would say, "Oh, you're self-sabotaging." And I just
Yeah.
hate that.
Yeah.
I just don't think we're doing. I don't think we're self sabotaging. I think that we're having an experience, like we're having
Yeah. Yeah.
we're activated in some way, or we're having a trauma adaptation, or our nervous
Yeah.
system is flooded by too much chemical. It's literally not that deep. So, yeah. So I think that we're talking about something that's big today. We're talking about trauma.
Mhm.
If you're someone who's had trauma, that can be a little bit of a struggle.
Mhm.
If you are someone who doesn't know if you have trauma, it can be a little bit of a struggle because it's like, oh, this is a big topic. That's a big word. What are they talking about? So
Mhm.
you being the host, and we're talking about trauma, and if you identify having trauma,
Mhm.
um, constriction of your vocal cords, right? Your nervous
Mhm.
system is possibly flooded by,
Oh, yeah.
some
Yep.
intense chemicals. And, what happens? Things start to shut down. So for you,
Yeah.
it was your voice. For me, it was my ability to cognitively process what I was saying, because my ability to process
Yeah.
goes out the
Goes
window.
out. Me too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, literally have been on a stage in a keynote with like 400 people in the room and have had to say, listen, I got to use my notes because I process things differently sometimes.
Yeah.
And my inner like kiddo, 7-year old, is very concerned about the fact that you're all going to think we're dumb because we're using notes. So can we just let her off the hook
Wow.
here? Like
Yeah.
you just have to embrace
You
that
do.
experience and just know that this is a biological response to something that feels like a threat, and
Yeah.
just go with it. Just embody it in
Yeah.
whatever way that you
Yeah.
can. But yeah, like we're talking about trauma today.
Yeah. And you know what? And there it is trying to shut off.
We're both like
I've
going,
it's just hilarious because there's no need for me to be I did vocal warm-ups. I drank the water, but this is the thing. And this can happen on stage in the middle of a Whitney Houston song that you're singing at a wedding?
yeah.
So if we know that and we don't self-judge all that good stuff, it and we just out it. It's endearing. Like when you were just talking about your keynote speech there, I would have been like more drawn to you with you just outing, "Hey, look, my inner 7-year-old is having a hard time here, so I need to look at my notes." I we don't want perfection, and that's something that artists or a lot of people, but I'm just gonna speak to the artists
Mhm.
right now. We think we have to be perfect to be accepted, and actually, the less perfect, the more we're all, like, leaning in, I feel. What are your experiences with perfection? I'm sure that's a big one with your
Yeah.
clients.
I
Yeah.
think perfection is such a weapon against ourselves and each other.
Mhm.
I also think that perfectionism is a weapon of systems around us that
Mm.
diminish and invalidate us a lot.
Mhm.
That we have been taught to dehumanize ourselves in spaces with others, and
Mm.
that need to be perfect to be valued
Mhm.
is a deep is a deep core belief for a lot of us, particularly if we have childhood trauma, or if it was
Mhm.
someone in your life who told you you had to be perfect for you to be worthy or
Yeah.
valuable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it gets deeply indoctrinated, deeply into our core wounds and into our
Right.
nervous system. When
Right.
the truth is that perfectionism is impossible. There is no perfect. There's no perfect anything,
Mhm.
really.
Mhm.
And that embracing that imperfection and that humanity that we have and naming it, it destigmatizes that inner critic and that experience that other people are also having.
Mhm.
And I think
Mhm.
that that is one of the most healing things that we can do, is just to be our human self, no matter where we're at. If we're at home, if we're in a group, if we're on a stage, you're a
Mhm.
human being first. You are valuable first. You are the
Mhm.
most important person in your business. You are the most important person in your art. You are the most important person in whatever project it is, in your job. You are the
Mhm.
most important person. You
Mhm.
deserve to value yourself imperfectly.
Wow. I love you. I've just met you, but I'm just in love with your work and you as a person. You're just fabulous. And one of the things that really came to my mind here is that going back to the small T trauma, I
Mhm.
really want to, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not always a malicious thing that happens to you. It could
Mhm.
simply be you grow up like myself in a house full of children, and you get your parents' attention by, oh, thanks, you cleaned your room, way to go. And that's all
Mhm.
you hear that day, baby, because it's so busy and so chaotic.
Mhm.
So then it becomes, oh, I get praise from doing these things perfectly, right? It could be that simple.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. It's not malicious. It's
No, not
usually
always.
not. It's
No.
usually, how do we download things when we're that age? It's a very concrete thing when we're young, right? If we get
Mhm.
praise, oh, I got praise for being productive or doing something
Yes.
perfectly. I want more of that. Let me keep doing that. We're
Yep.
very concrete thinkers when we're young.
Yep.
Or um, we're having financial problems, in our family. I need to
Mm.
figure this out. Like, I need to help. I'm 7. What am I going to do? But I'm going to
Mhm.
think that I'm going to internalize this as a problem that I need to solve.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it can be something very overt and direct, or it can be a little bit less, direct
Mhm.
than that. So it doesn't
Mhm.
it doesn't always have to look malicious or dangerous, but it's how
Mhm.
we interpret it and
Right.
then how we adapt to it.
Right. Right. And the adaptive, how we adapt part is the usually where the signs are. If you're reaching for 10 cups of coffee because you're, afraid you're going to run out of energy because your business is so demanding,
Hmm.
that's another one.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. There's so many places I want to go, and I've said that a few times now, but it really truly is. You can have 20 episodes on this, but I want to get to your books. But before that, you talked about emotional sustainability and financial stability in your businesses for your clients. That's a goal. And you also mentioned money trauma. Can you tell us a little bit about how we transfer these relationships to our money and what happens and how we can know that that's what's going on?
Yeah, I think money is so
Mhm.
complicated, right? It's just
Mhm.
there's so much emotion that gets wrapped up in money, and when you think about it, just from a survivability standpoint, it's very connected to our nervous systems
Mhm.
because if you have it, you survive. If you don't, you're going to struggle, right? And
Mhm.
so, not only are we downloading energetically that connection and that relationship with money, but also what we're seeing and hearing around us. And money trauma can look a lot of different things to people. I've worked with
Mhm.
people who grew up with a lot of money, but they had money trauma because they felt guilty. They had a lot of
Oh,
guilt, and so they
yep.
minimized their own ability to earn, to not be in that
Wow.
place.
Yeah.
I've worked with people who, parents where they were homeless, like the other end of it,
Mhm.
where they were
Mhm.
homeless and food insecure. And all that mattered to them was, I am going to always have money, just, never going to feel this way again, to
Yeah.
the point where they can have millions in the bank and still never feel like it's enough because there is no number that can make them feel secure enough. And
Wow.
so the experiences that we download around money when we're kids, again, remember I talked about we get very concrete about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not a lot of nuance or context there for us when we're young. We develop this relationship with money that's either influenced by our surroundings or
Mhm.
the systems around us, again, who tell us, what we can and can't do. And that can be traumatizing to us because it changes how we see ourselves, how we value
Mhm.
ourselves, and
Mhm.
then what we think is available to us in the world and how
Mhm.
we're going to get it. I cannot tell you how many people that I have worked with who've left corporate and business or positions to start their own business. I'm talking like 1% sales in big companies.
Wow.
They leave this corporate terror, right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
this, they talk about traumatizing systems, and they
Mhm.
go, to start their own business to benefit their talent for themselves, and they
Mhm.
immediately shut down because they were traumatized by the system, and also the desire to be successful, to always be a high achiever, to always be the high earner, didn't translate to their business because all of a sudden here they have to value themselves. They have to put a price tag on themselves.
Mhm.
It all
Mhm.
comes down to them at this point. And so the relationship that they had with money in this one place didn't translate to over here owning a
Mhm.
business, right?
Wow.
So yeah, and just, I mean, shoot, I grew up in the '80s, again. Like I said, I was 52, right? The decade that you grew up in, you know,
Yes.
I mean, the
Yep.
'80s. What do you think? You think it's shoulder pads, like Victor Newman on Young and the Restless,
Oh, yeah.
Dallas, like all the people in the '80s that I watched that had money, they were assholes.
They
So
were
they were
assholes.
not nice people. So
No.
right. And so I went to
Wow.
school to be a therapist, and more than that, went to social work school. What were we taught?
Yeah.
We were taught, be a
Yeah.
service. You're not going to make a lot of money. You maybe will
Mhm.
make this amount of money when you get out into the world. We
Mhm.
were taught, you
Mhm.
can't have this. and I just complied with it, right?
And we just
Just said,
comply.
okay, vow of poverty is what I called it. So,
Wow.
yeah, money's complicated and it's
It's
very
so
connected to emotion in our nervous systems and our family of origin.
yeah. So I see often a lot that we will it's almost like we have blinders on and we make those stories fit and we're not even
Mhm,
aware that we do. So really good example is someone that's put their art out there and they're not making money and they've decided no one cares and they need to quit. But
mhm,
when you really look at the situation, perhaps they haven't marketed.
yeah,
Perhaps they haven't done XYZ. There's been some steps that haven't it's been done and they don't even realize it and they've just decided that this is a failure. This is done.
yeah,
So what's going on there? How come we can't big question. How come we can't see the forest for the trees? Are we
mhm,
so in the program that we actually can't see the way out?
yeah.
Yeah, what can you say to
Yeah,
that?
I always say that you can't read your own label. You know, this is the time that we
Ooh.
need someone else to
Oh
reflect
yeah.
back to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Um, because it's more than just the money piece of it. It is, it's visibility, it's trust, it's all of those factors
Mhm.
that play into whether someone actually hears our music, sees our art, whether we
Mhm.
feel valuable, whether we sold the thing or not. If you only feel valuable if you
Mhm.
sell this thing that you created, what are you doing on the opposite side of that? You're constantly invalidating yourself. So
Mhm.
it's a big scary thing. You're connecting so much to this one transaction.
Right.
So there's so much more that goes to that. And so I
Mhm.
don't give up on yourself. I mean, one of the missions that I have in my work is that, and this again comes down to business, but you can pick it up and put it anywhere,
Mhm.
is I don't want you to not have a business that is successful and gives you that emotional sustainability and the financial security that you're looking for. It may be because you have a bad idea, or maybe you have a marketing plan you need to tweak. Maybe there's something else, but
Yeah.
it will not be because you have unhealed trauma running in your business. Not on my watch.
Nice.
Period. In the story.
Oh,
Just like with this, it's like you haven't given it a chance yet. There's so much fear and
yeah.
there's so much nervous system activation and there's so much writing on this thing, this piece, this music,
Mhm.
because someone told you somewhere along the way that you were only valuable if this worked out for you, that it
Wow.
feels impossible to put the steps in place to risk it.
Ooh.
So there's more there. It's not just no one wants to buy my stuff. It is, does anybody know you exist? Like,
Right.
are you
Right.
pricing it in a way that can actually even support you in your life? Or,
Yeah.
there's so much more here.
Wow. So what about those moments, and this might be attached to money, it might not, but those moments when we say yes to those big things, or those big offers, or we rise, we dare to rise and we
Mhm.
do it and we say yes to the thing and then something happens where it's almost like we have a hangover of why the hell did I say yes to that? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Is this pattern trauma or is this something of the human condition and we just simply have to this is just how it works that
I think
we
it's
we
yes,
kind of
and
yeah.
I
Okay.
think it
What
can.
can
I
you
think
say?
it can be both. I think it can be both. If you are someone who has a traumatized nervous system,
Mhm.
it might feel way more scary to you, or you might
Yeah.
have more somatic experiences, like I'm getting a headache, or I feel like I'm going to throw up, or
Mm.
I feel like a vulnerability hangover for saying, who am I to charge for this much for this thing? I hear that a lot. Like, who am I to charge, ten
Right.
thousand dollars for a day of speaking, or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and it could be because you have a traumatized nervous system, or it could be that it's just something you haven't done yet. And you have to
Right.
build some tolerance for this being how you see yourself now. I am
Mm.
now someone who charges $10,000 a day to speak or do a training. That is
Mhm.
how I see myself now. It's going to take me a little time to build that tolerance for that.
Wow.
Um, because, I have a human being nervous system that's like, oh,
Yeah.
this is new. Do I
Mhm.
need to blow it up? Or can we invite it in? So
Oh,
so
that's
it's
good.
kind of both. It just depends on where you are in that continuum. Your nervous system, is just kind
Wow.
of going to respond to something new and different.
Wow, and if you feel like maybe you can't handle it, you might blow it up, right? And
Mhm,
you might not even really know why or how you blew it up, but you just reacted.
mhm,
It's this knee jerk. Wow. Oh my gosh. So how I see myself, that's a big one. What do you invite your clients to kind of do an inventory of like how do you see yourself? And let's look at that and see what is actually trauma and what you actually want
Mhm.
to be seeing or what
Yeah.
you actually see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the things I love to have people do is what is something that you do today, every day in your life or business that 2, 3 years ago you thought was completely outside of your realm of capability or that would never happen to you. You know, like
Mm.
it just and they can usually give me a couple of answers. And
Mhm.
so we use that usually to unpack, okay, so what did you need to do in order to get here? What worked for
Mhm.
you? Was it continuing to do the thing over and over again? Was it
Mhm.
getting someone else to reflect back to you? Again, can't read our own labels, to remind us or reflect back to us what is
Mhm.
working for us, because our nervous systems are more likely to look at what is not working for us to protect us from danger than what is working for us. And do we just kind of unpack like what happened? How did you get here from this thing that just felt just too big?
Wow.
And it's really freeing to see, oh my gosh, the first time I ever did a podcast interview, do you know, 3 days before that podcast interview, I had nothing on my schedule. No appointments, no nothing. Like true
What?
story.
Yeah.
No nothing. Because I could not fathom doing this podcast interview without being completely prepared and could
Wow.
could I call it being in the waiting room. I think it's an ADHD thing, but I just couldn't do anything else until this big scary thing was gone. I do
Yes.
3 a day now. It is not a big deal
Yeah.
to me, right? So,
Wo
but
Congrats.
we
That's
have to
huge.
unpack it. We have to
Yeah.
build space for it. And so we kind of look back
Wow.
at what are things like that you've done before and how did you get through it?
Wow, and then just looking at the process of, yes, this happened and maybe you had a panic attack or threw up or
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
and then you got through it and now you kinda look forward to them, right? There's this
Yes.
piece of us that says yes to these things because it's fun, it's exciting, it's
Yeah.
new, it's
Mhm.
expansion, and then
Yes.
that oh goodness, okay, that's
Yeah.
so good.
Excitement and anxiety are like cousins. They're like, well, actually closer than cousins. They're right here together. So,
Siblings?
yeah, siblings.
Oh, so good. You have 2 fabulous books, and I wanna just hit on a bit of both of them because we have 6 minutes, so I wanna definitely hit on them. The 3 whys
Mhm.
in a couple wor in 3 word no. What are the 3 whys, my dear, and how can we, practice that today, put it into practice for ourselves?
Yeah. So the gist of it is that use we all have a why behind what we do, right? Whether it's a
Mhm,
business, art, music, there's some deeper why connected to that. Maybe it's a divine calling. Maybe it is because we had some kind of wound in our life that we want to overcome. Whatever that may be. And when we can recognize what that is,
mhm,
then it helps us stay on track. We can determine, and is my why because I want to have a business because I want my dad to finally respect me. Okay, that's a worthy why. You're probably not going to get that why though. So we
mhm,
need to understand how you can still feel good in your business, even though you're probably not going to get the approval from this demanding father, right? Like, what is your
right.
deeper why here? So we can give
Mhm.
you what it is that you want. Or is
Wow.
it this divine calling that you have? And how we get rolled up in our day to day activities and we forget
Mhm,
why we are doing all these things, right? Is how we can get connected to those deeper whys that we have so they can keep us on
mhm.
track as opposed to take us off course. I keep hitting my mic.
It's so cute, I love it, don't
Yeah.
worry about
So that's why I call
it.
it the three the 3 whys. It's like we have to realize where are we at this moment? Is it my calling? Is it because I want to prove something, or am I just
Yeah.
doing some crap every day I hate doing, and I forgot
Yeah,
why I'm doing this?
yeah.
So that's pretty much why that book is about recognizing why did you start your business to start with? Like, what was the thing that you
Why?
wanted?
Isn't that interesting? And a lot of us, maybe we don't know the answers to those until we are presented with, "Hey, try on these questions and see what you think." Like,
Yeah.
what is it underneath it
Hmm.
all?
Or
Let's
you
get
listen to
conscious.
any autobiography by a huge, entrepreneur, entertainer, or
Yeah.
musician, and they're going to tell you in retrospect what their deeper why was. Prince,
Oh,
Dave
so good.
Grohl, like whomever, they're going to tell you, I
Yeah.
had a moment where I
Yeah.
became a musician because of this why.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of them, it's somebody told them, "Get your head out of the clouds. You can't do this." And they go,
Hmm.
"Watch me.
Yeah,
Watch me do it."
that's
And I
totally
will
Prince. It's totally for instance,
Yeah?
like, and I will
I
do
haven't
it
read that.
all myself, and I will do it
Wow.
perfectly.
And
I
he
will show
did.
you. And he
He
did, and
literally did
it
it all.
destroyed him, but he did
It
it, right?
destroyed him, but he literally did it all.
Yeah,
Isn't that sad? Oh,
yeah,
there's so many places we can go with just that, how your traumas can actually,
yeah.
destroy you in a
It
way, so
uh-huh.
oh, they're always there.
They are.
But it's not heavy work. It can be exciting, right?
Oh
What
gosh,
do you say to
yeah.
people that get overwhelmed by this work? Yeah, what would you say?
Absolutely,
Mhm.
baby steps, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't be working with people and telling people about this if there wasn't something that you can do, and it's like
Mhm.
the book, my How to Love Your Business book,
That's
right?
next.
It's
Here we
about
go.
how to love
Boom.
your business, not how to beat
Yeah.
yourself up with your business. You're that's not the title. The title is how to love your business and have it love you
Oh,
back because your business, your art, whatever, it can be a arena for healing for you. You
right.
absolutely can heal through your business, through your art. It is right there
Wow.
waiting to be a part of your healing journey. And it absolutely can. And it can be beautiful. But we have to
Wow.
have the tools, the intention, and the knowledge to do this. So that's what the good news is that you don't have to suffer.
That is so epic, and I'm glad you brought that your other book because that's where we're going next. The word relationship really changed everything for me when you said it like that because if this was a romantic relationship, we wouldn't settle for half the stuff we're settling for that is in our business relationship with ourselves, right? Or how we're being in that business wouldn't be a very
Hmm.
good romantic partner. So when we think of it
Yeah.
as a relationship, it's two-way street too,
Mhm.
but also like who are you being? Would you want to date you in that relationship? I don't know, maybe, but
Mhm.
really just thinking about it differently than business. That word can get a lot of weirdness on top of it. So, what are some things that you unpack around the word business and what that means to people?
Can you tell me more about what you mean by that?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if maybe business has a very hard edge, there's no place for softness in the word
Hmm.
business. There's no place for what I actually bring. So I have to be this XYZ over here that I think I need to be to succeed in business. What
Hmm.
are you seeing there? Yeah.
Yeah, I think again, because we've been asked to leave who we are, our humanity at the door when we start a
Mhm.
business or when we start a career. When you go to get a loan for your business, no one asks you do you have any trauma from your past or
Mhm.
how do you want to feel about your business? No one's asking you that, which is why we talked about the emotional sustainability plan.
Yeah.
I will
Mm.
ask you that
Yeah.
because we're asked to just drop who we are, and so we see
Yeah.
business as being hard in practice or impersonal and very these rough edges, and it
Right.
absolutely is not that because your business. You are not your business. It is something you're in a relationship with, and you get to develop and create that. It
Ooh.
is it can be a really beautiful thing. So I think when we
Mhm.
think about business, we think we have to disenfranchise ourselves as part of that
Yes.
process.
Yeah.
And if you were your own boss, like if you worked for someone who treated you the way you do in your business, you wouldn't stand for it. You'd report them,
No.
you'd quit. There's no way.
No.
So why would you do that to yourself in your own business? Don't treat yourself that
Wow.
way.
Wow. What a great note to end on, and I wanted to draw attention to what you just said. You are not your business. You are in
Hmm.
a relationship with your business, and if you can get that of all the things we talked about, that's gonna be life-changing right there,
Hmm.
without all the heaviness, just exploration and curiosity, that's life-changing, so
Yeah.
oh, Nicole, my goodness, I wish we weren't out of time, but, your beautiful book, How to Love Your Business, Stop Recreating Trauma, and Have a Business You Love and That Loves You Back. That's key. You can get that on anywhere, but it's on your website
It's
for
on
sure.
Amazon
The
too.
the
Yeah.
link, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So nicole.lewis-keeber.com. You can visit her there. And I've got your Instagram here at nicole.lewiskeeber. So connect with Nicole and share the love because she's fabulous. Get her lovely books and just, if nothing else, get curious about this stuff. Trauma
Hmm.
is there. It is in your art. It is in your business, whether you want it or not. It's
Yeah.
there. So, so get curious. And thank you so much, Nicole, for being here. I so appreciate you. And yeah, I will say bye and I'll close the show off. And you can stick
Thank
around or
you.
you can go, whatever you
Yeah.
need to do.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nicole. Wasn't that fun? Oh my goodness. I just Oh, Wanda, you had some comments. Thank you for your comments. Thank you so much. This was amazing. Well, I appreciate you and all your beautiful comments. Yes, thank you. Um, it was fun. I just enjoy stuff like this, and when you folks chat with us, we just love that even more. So, for the next show updates, you can check out our YouTube channel at Voxsana. There, it's all there. And I also have a website, voxsana.co, and you can connect with us on Facebook. I know, old school Facebook. But hey, you know what? Voxsana.co, and eventually I'll get on Instagram. I say that every time, and I say that every time, but I will. So thank you so much for watching this episode. And yeah, I can't thank you enough. My voice wants to stop working. So this was a big one. This was big. You may have to take a few seconds to breathe after this one because it is a big topic, but I want to make it clear it doesn't have to be heavy. It doesn't have to be another to-do list item. It can be exploration. It can be in the moment. But it is worth it to go through this journey. So I wish you all every success. And I'm going to be my own producer and do the outro song. So take care, and we'll see you next time.